welcome to My Stable Relationship, an equestrian performance podcast where we will deep dive into the mindset and management challenges of ourselves and of our peers. Our discussions will allow you to learn from experts, encourage you to set audacious goals, overcome challenges, and develop actionable plans. Ready? Let's do this. Hello everyone, and welcome back to My Stable Relationship. As a reminder before we get started, for the month of July, I am giving away 25 free introductory performance coaching sessions. So these sessions are perfect for any equestrian who has ever thought about performance, mindset, or life coaching. Come with a topic or just come as you are, and we will find our way in the session. The booking link can be found now in the podcast show notes or in my social media bios at Journey of Equine. Before we jump into the topic today, I have 2 notes for you. Number 1, if I sound different, it's because I have woken up with a cold today. I took a test and it's not COVID yet, but my nose is blocked and my throat is sore. So if you're getting quite a different voice today, that is why. And as a side note, I am not very good at being sick. I really love being outside. I really love being with the horses, and I am not very good at resting. So hopefully this clears up very quickly. Second, I wanted to share with you a great reminder that my horses have given me this week. For the most part, I paddock my horses here in pairs. We are in the process of setting up a paddock paradise track system for them, but until that point, they are in pairs. And for the most part, I let them choose their own friends to be paddocked with, and I find that kind of through a trial and error approach. So we have a nightly routine on the farm here. In the really windy or the really wet weather, my horses are stabled overnight. So at about 5:30 or 6 p.m, I go out to catch them in their pairs, and I just bring 2 in at a time to the stables. And I always catch Bo and Rio first because they tend to be the ones hooning around at dinner time. And if you listen to my previous episodes, you will remember that Rio has a significant hoof injury at the moment, and he is meant to be staying bandaged and clean, and hooning around in the paddock is not helping with that injury. And that is not what we promised the vet we would be doing. But again, we made a trade-off between his mental health and the ideal state. So I want you to imagine every night, Rio and Bo are galloping around the paddock. They are tearing up and down the paddock, bucking, rearing, they're prancing with their tails in the air, they're spinning, they're chasing each other, all sorts of crazy things. And then I want you to imagine in the paddock right next door to them is Rhythm and Joe. And Rhythm and Joe are standing dead still. They're resting their hind legs, they're very relaxed, they have droopy lips and half-closed eyes. And they're having a rest to spite their brothers next door who are tearing around within range of their sight and their hearing. Joe and Rhythm just don't do that. They aren't into it and they don't want to participate. And seeing this interaction nearly every night reminds me of 2 great lessons. Number 1, you need to surround yourself with people who support you or bring you joy. Over the years, I've tried to paddock Rio and Bo with other horses, but they end up in fights or being really difficult towards the other horses or even bullying them. They've not been good personality matches with other horses previously. But once these 2 met each other, it was like no other horse mattered. They are the absolute best of friends, even if they do cause me a bit of anxiety with their nighttime galloping. And number 2, my horses reminded me this week that you really do have a choice over what external things influence or stimulate you. So Joe and Rhythm have a full view of what Rio and Bo are doing, and it doesn't faze them one bit. They're not into it, they don't want to play, and they have a choice, and they've actioned their choice. And as another note, while I'm not so keen on Rio galloping and playing on his injured hoof, I am very glad to see that he's at least back to normal and stirring up his brother every night. And with that little life lesson from my horses, let's get into today's episode. So we're still spending these few episodes on my coaching beliefs, and these are the beliefs that I bring into my performance coaching work and my equestrian coaching work. So I intertwine these into the work that I do with clients, and I also use them in my day-to-day life. And today's topic is data over drama. Data over drama. And for those of you who pronounce it data, that's okay. I'm in Australia and I've always said data. Data over drama. And I love this because it's sort of a mindset topic and it's also sort of a management topic. And I think this is the very first time that we'll touch on a real management topic in the episode. So let's just start with what I mean when I say data. Data is facts or statistics collected together for reference or analysis. It's facts about something that can be used for planning, reasoning, and decision making. Now, don't turn this episode off. Stick with this because this is so important for your equestrian journey. So, in the horse world, data is things like vet reports, or the number of days that your horse has been lame for, or the number of days that your horse has been on bute or another medicine. Data is hoof photos or x-rays, dressage scores, competition scores, blood test results, even videos of your training sessions can be used as a form of data. Really anything that you can gather multiple of over time so that we can start looking at trends. And we will talk about why trends are so important in a short while. But if that's what data means, what do I mean when I say drama? So drama is an exciting or emotional situation. It's normally unexpected, and the emotions that it brings on are normally intense, in full force, or at the extremes of our emotional spectrum. Drama looks really different for everyone because all of our brains are wired totally differently, and we react totally differently. A good example of drama is a story that I told you a couple of podcast episodes ago when I was speaking about Rio's hoof injury. And I told you that the vet unexpectedly called me and asked to come and see the injury. And as soon as I hung up that phone, I immediately jumped to a conclusion that Rio was going to have to be put to sleep. And it caused me to spiral into overwhelm, stress. I felt sick. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. I was holding back tears. And I started Googling all sorts of cremation and burial services. Meanwhile, all the vet had actually said to me was that they were on their way to look at his hoof. They had not given me any other information. I had made the rest up myself. I had taken A and I had jumped all the way to Z. The actual facts here were wildly different to what my brain made it mean. Have a think about that for a moment. When was the last time that you fell into drama? Was it in your equestrian pursuits or was it in life more broadly? What was the actual circumstance? What did your brain tell you it meant? How did you react? Did you get really angry or upset or aggressive? Did you jump to conclusions? Did you spiral like I did? Were you sad or inconsolable? Or were you in a positive type of drama? Now, drama in our lives is something that we really need to watch or be careful of. Whether it's a negative or positive reaction, drama can actually be overstimulating and exhausting to our nervous system. You can get hooked into drama and become over-involved or too deeply involved in some events, and that can set you up for frustration. Drama can also lead to you not taking action, or on the other side of the spectrum, taking a wild or far-fetched type of action or response, like an action that isn't thoughtful. So I bet as we talk about it, most of you are kind of leaning towards eliminating drama being a positive thing. So in order to eliminate some of this drama in your life, I want to get into the management aspect of this. To be able to effectively default to data over drama, you actually need to have data. If you're not tracking data, there is simply no way to work out what is working and what is not working. There's no way to split decisions other than your thoughts and your gut feelings, which we've already learned before tend to skew circumstances, right? Collecting data is so important because it allows you to fix the things that aren't working, but keep the things that are. It allows you to really analyze trends and make small tweaks to optimize your routine. Otherwise, what I see happening is people make big changes or multiple changes, and we're never quite able to see what worked and what didn't. Capturing data leads right into being able to undertake trial and error in our approaches, which is next week's episode. But as a quick example, I'm an equestrian coach as well, and something I saw the other week with one of my students was this idea of making multiple changes. So their horse has kissing spine, and we're rehabbing using lots of groundwork at the moment. But my student has also done a million other things at once. So they've had the horse's joints injected, they've done massage, red light therapy, they've changed feeds, they've swapped supplements, and they're moving from barefoot to shoes with wedges. Now, All of this is obviously out of care and love for their horse, which I totally understand. But when the vet now asks us how much of a difference the joint injections made, we literally have no idea because the changes were made in combination with a million other things to help the horse. And the downside is that we won't know how to help the horse going forward. Did the injections help? Yes or no? We don't know. So now we don't know if they'll actually be useful in future either, or if the student is just wasting their money on that area of the body. Data over drama, everyone. Some people instinctively feel like they understand the trends within themselves. So let me tell you, as a qualified scientist, that is absolutely not the case. The number of times that in my life, in my corporate work, scientific experiments, or with my own students, that I have found that our gut feel does not represent the real world is unbelievable. You need to be physically tracking the data. I want you to write it down. I want you to keep it in a notebook or on your phone or your laptop, wherever. But there needs to be copies that you can return to so that we can account for those times that your brain is certain that you are correct, but it turns out you are only remembering parts of the situation or have skewed the situation. The other thing that I want to tell you is that the reality is you will never be prepared or aware enough to know exactly how much data you need to collect, to know exactly what types of data and when. So many times I start collecting data after the fact or to answer a question that has arisen. So, for example, Joe, my retired show jumper, has a neurologic condition. Now, when I started heavily working on Joe's rehabilitation, my instructor asked me an incredible question that not even my vet team had asked me. She asked me if he was lying down each night and for how long. She was wondering if he was still able to get up and down off the ground. And you know what? Even as a scientist, a coach, and someone who does this rehab work, I wasn't yet tracking that metric. I was tracking a million other things about his gait and his hock function and his hoof angles, etc., but not that. So it doesn't matter how hard you try and analyze, there will always be data that you might need at other times. It'll flow in and out, you'll turn it on and off, you'll start collecting and stop collecting again. You might only need it for a short while until you've answered a question. And all of that is okay. And all you can do is your best. And I don't want you to ever be upset at yourself for not thinking through all the millions of ways that you could track an event, as long as you're trying and you're starting. So, what happens if you're not collecting data at the moment? We touched on it a little bit at the start that people fall into drama, but there are some other common reactions that are kinds of drama or telltale signs when someone doesn't have the data that they need. So, the first is they end up making assumptions. People will tell me in their explanations, they will say, I assume the wedges are making a difference to his hooves. I assume that his stride length has increased with his newly fitted saddle. But how great would it be if you did not have to assume and rather we could draw a trend? Another telltale sign is that you will have jumped to a conclusion. Jumping to conclusions is when you fail to distinguish between what you observed firsthand from what you only inferred or assumed. So when you judge or decide something without having all of the facts or any of the facts, you will reach unwarranted conclusions. And this is an extension of the assumptions piece because jumping to conclusions often happens either by making assumptions about what others will think, we call that mind reading, or making assumptions about what will happen, and we call that fortune telling. Let me say that again just so it really sinks in. Jumping to conclusions often happens by making assumptions about what others will think, mind reading, or making assumptions about what will happen, fortune telling. So mind reading is things like thinking your vet might be angry at you now because you put your horse out in a small yard instead of box rest. You are assuming that you know exactly how the vet will think and feel about the circumstance. Fortune telling is things like thinking you're going to refuse the water jump because your horse has never seen a water tray before. You are assuming that you know exactly what will happen in future. And there's a few other ways people jump to conclusions like extrapolation or overgeneralization and labeling, but we won't get into these here. But what I would like to say is that in many situations, jumping to conclusions can actually lead to reasonable results. So don't get me wrong, if you're in Australia like me and a kangaroo jumps out in front of your car, you need to reach a decision to hit those brakes super quickly. If you're not in Australia, replace kangaroo with whichever animal likes to cross your road. But I think you get the point. Our brains are set up to be able to jump to conclusions because often it's a useful function. But I would like to offer to you that in horse training or rehabilitation, or in many situations in life more broadly, jumping to conclusions or drama type responses aren't serving you. So here's the bottom line sports psychology rule for you to walk away with. If you're making a small reversible decision, you can base it more so on intuition and track less data. If it's an irreversible big decision or a complex problem, I need you to be collecting data to support your analysis. So summary, small decision, intuition. Big decision, data. Small decision, intuition. Big decision, data. And I hope that makes sense. So let's get you started with an action item today so that we can start weaving the idea of data over drama into your day-to-day life. So step number 1, I want to challenge you to think of a complex problem that you currently have or a big decision that you need to make. It can be about your horse or it can be in life more broadly. But here's some examples. Maybe you have a rehabilitation horse at the moment that you're trying to work out the best rehab plan for. Maybe you're buying horses right now and you're trying to decide between two. Maybe you're trying to decide whether or not to step up a grade at your next competition. Maybe you don't know whether to take your horse barefoot or to leave them with shoes on. Action item number 2, grab a pen and paper. We are going to start making a list. And I want you to answer this question. What types of data do you need? Just start listing whatever comes to mind. There are no right or wrong answers. Just write down whatever you think might help you make your decision or better understand your complex problem. And number 3, against each of those data types, I want you to make some commitments. I want you to write first, who is responsible for capturing that data? Is it you? Is it the vet? Is it the farrier? Who is going to collect that data? 2, how will the data be captured and stored? Will it be saved in your notebook? Will it be uploaded to Google Drive? How are you going to keep and store this data? And 3, how often do you want to capture it? Make your best guess here, because remember, your best guess about data is better than nothing and is 1,000 times better than drama. So as an example, Joe recently went from barefoot to shoed again with wedges, and now I'm thinking about pulling those shoes off and going to hoof boots and wedges. So in order to make that decision, I needed to capture hoof photos and measure his hoof sizes for boots. I also collected videos of him walking in straight lines and lunging so that I could start to see the gait and hock pivot over the course of the shoeing cycles. And I decided to take those videos once a month. I also started to track how many minutes he leant against walls each day before the shoes and now with the shoes on. Then I needed the vet to capture x-rays so that we can measure his hoof angles. And we decided this would likely need to be done every 3 months so that we can see if there is change happening throughout the cycle. And the real benefit here is that I'm able to look back over my data and I can confidently answer whether or not the wedges on Joe's hind feet have changed his gait, increased his hoof angles, or reduced leaning against walls. And I just don't have a good sense of that intuitively because I'm not with him all the time and I've got 5 other horses and I just cannot store all of the visual pictures of him lunging in the arena in my mind. It's just not possible. So I'm so glad that I'm tracking data to help me make these big decisions with his rehab. And I'm super interested in what complex problem or decision you try this on. So please DM me on the socials at Journey of Equine and let me know. We might even be able to brainstorm some of the possible data types together. Or if you would like further help, I take one-on-one performance coaching clients at the moment, and I would be more than happy to help you move out of your drama and focus on data. Data over drama, everyone. It is so important. Now, before you go, I want to remind you that to celebrate the podcast launching and to thank you for all of your support so far, I am giving away 25 free introductory performance coaching sessions during July. This is the perfect opportunity for any equestrian who is perhaps feeling a bit confused or stuck with their horse or even in life more broadly. You are welcome to bring a specific mindset or management topic to chat about, or just come as you are, and we will find our way in the session. There are some prompts in the sign-up sheet, so just fill them in as best you can, depending on what you're hoping to speak about. The sign-up link is available now in the podcast show notes and in my social media bios at Journey of Equine. If you think you'd like a chance at performance coaching, or if you know of another equestrian who would, please head straight to the link and sign up. And as a side note, if any of the time slots don't suit your current time zone, can you please just DM me on Instagram or Facebook? And if there are still some slots available, we can look at swapping those times to better work across our time zones. And with that exciting announcement, I just want to say thank you for tuning in today and for putting up with my cold today. Please subscribe, follow along on the socials. The links are in the show notes. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. My goal is to help you more effectively train or rehabilitate your horse by focusing on your mindset and management, both inside and outside of the arena. If this sounds like something you'd like one-on-one help with, or if you'd like to follow along for more, come and join me on Instagram or Facebook at Journey of Equine. The links will be in the show notes. Have a great week, everyone.